I'm going to attempt to give a little demonstration on spinnerbaits. I don't know much about spinnerbaits, but I fish them a lot anyway. Show of hands, who fishes spinnerbaits? Everybody. So, I'm done. That's a lot. I was hoping there'd be a few guys in here that didn't really fish a spinnerbait.
I only fish a spinnerbait when I'm fishing with you. I promise.
That's it.
Well, he's catching fish and I ain't. I'm fishing with him.
I fish at 0.05% of the time. So
yeah, well, I think it's confidence. You know, everybody has their own go-to bait, and mine's a spinnerbait. You know, a lot of people throw a worm, a lot of people throw a crankbait. I grew up fishing spinnerbaits on Darbone, and so if we ever go to Darbone, I'm gonna be throwing spinnerbait. So, I guess basically the first thing on the spinnerbait is your blade choice. And forgive my art because I'm not a very good artist, but
that's pretty good. I'm impressed, man.
So first blade is the willow lead. You know, everybody knows the long, skinny willow lead blade. Usually use that if I'm power fishing, want to fish real fast. You can kind of pull it and get it up, you know, to the surface. Sometimes I use it if I just want to cut through grass a little better. It doesn't grab the grass as much as Colorado blade does. You don't want to pass that around or whatever. Next is the Colorado blade. Usually if I throw a Colorado, I'm going to throw a gold blade because I'm usually fishing it real slow and I want to get some major thumpage. Is that a word? Thumpage? So it's a word. Okay. You know, you can barely pull a Colorado blade if you fish too much and it's going to pick it up off the bottom. A lot of times I'll use this when I'm in the early part of the year when I want to fish real slow and put a real fat trailer on my bait. And then I guess the next blade, there's two variations of it. It's I've seen the Indiana blade on two or three different types of manufacturers. Some of them they'll just take the willow leaf and make it a little shorter, maybe a little fatter. And some of them they'll take the kind of the Colorado blade and extend it and call it an Indiana. I use that on sometimes when I'm fishing like early in the year, January and February, if I'm almost using my spinnerbait like a jig. I'll just throw it, let it drop straight down and pull it. It just makes a whole bunch of vibration all at once. If you're going to throw it all day long, I don't recommend it because you'll be tired by the end of the day. So first choice, I guess, is the blade you want to throw. You know, if you want to throw real slow, probably the Colorado blade. If you want to burn it a little faster, I would go with a willow lead. Just choice. I guess the type of conditions. The next is your wire. Brought some wire. If I'm fishing tight cover, a lot of wood limbs, I want to fish a little stiffer wire. Something like a Stanley wedge spinnerbait maybe, or even a booyah. It's got a pretty stiff wire on it. If I'm fishing a lot of just grass or right on the edge of a mud bank or something where I'm not going to worry about hanging up, I want something like a Terminator that's just all flexible so I don't hang a lot of the cover. I don't know why they don't put the wires like a steel cable wire with a wrap and the plastic coating. To me, that would be the best lasting type of bait, but I've never seen them do that. But I'm working on that. So, yeah, that's true. They last a little while. Then next is the head choice. Supposed to use visual aids, right? Head choice. I have a niece that's a hairdresser, you know. So they have different kinds of heads. They have the kind of a.
I never saw that coming.
Kinds that are just kind of pointed looking heads that are on some of your less expensive baits, you know, and it's just painted maybe white or something. Then they have the heads that are shaped like a fish head and they got the little eyes and all painted on it.
That is one angry dude.
I prefer red heads. I usually want to make sure my head's painted with some red on it, you know, just the color red. So.
That's going on YouTube, don't you?
But skirt, but. Back to the colors, I guess. Probably 90% of the time, if I'm throwing a spinnerbait, I'm gonna start out with this Terminator, with the chartreuse and white. I've just found over the years that it's got the most vibration to it, and it's just a good bait. I've caught fish on it for probably the last 10 or 12 years. So 3/8 ounce is usually what I use. You don't want to pass those around. But, yeah, didn't make it very far with that one. Usually I'll put either a little split tail trailer on it. I found these, it's called a Fat Albert grub, and this is a margarita color. It's probably the closest thing you can find to a chartreuse with a little sparkle in it. I found these work really good as a trailer on that Terminator. It seems like the tail on it gives it a little extra wiggle, but it's just far enough back on the hook that it doesn't get tangled up in your blades. If you go with too short of a tail, especially if it's got a little curl tail on it, it's going to get caught in the blades, and then you're just going to be dragging dead weight.
You always have a trailer on your spinnerbait?
Usually I start with a trailer unless it's late in the summer and they're schooling shad, and it's just then I'm throwing a white spinnerbait. I'm going to probably, you know, they're in a school of shad. I'm going to throw it and just burn it through the school of shad, so I don't really put a trailer on it so I can fish it a little faster. Because if you got a trailer on there and you're fishing it real fast, that trailer will make it float up, so it's going to get on top of the water, and something like fishing a bud bait. Years ago, I was reading an article by KVD on fishing a spinnerbait, and this one's a little stuffed up, but anyway. Muddy water, cloudy day, sun's not out. He always says go to painted blades. So I usually always keep a couple of these in the boat with me. So chartreuse spinnerbait with the chartreuse painted blade. Sometimes you can find them with the double painted blades. That's what I try to find. And they work really well on sockeye. You can fill the boat up with sockeye with this thing. I don't know. This is what I'll use a lot of times early in the year. Just like fishing a black and blue jig, I just let it drop straight down. I get one with it's a real stiff wire. So, I mean, I hang these up less probably than I hang the jig up, because they don't have that big fat head on them right there. It's a pointed head. I just let it fall, and then I bounce it off the bottom. Funny story about that, I was fishing a BAS tournament a few years ago with a guy named Tom Dolan out of New York. And we pulled into a place on Toledo Bend there, and he was popping a jig. And, you know, most time when you flip a jig, it's just kind of, you know, you'll do a little slow drip. He'd snatch that jig up so hard, his line would whistle every time he picked it up. It was almost pulling it out of the water and letting it fall. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And he said, when I was here practicing, he was there practicing, every bite he got was on that snatch. And he said, when you snatch it, it's like you're setting the hook. So I started fishing that spinnerbait like that, and we loaded the boat with fish that morning. Actually, I had a limit bigger than his the first till about 2 o'clock, and when the sun popped out that afternoon, they didn't want the flash anymore, which is kind of goofy, but because usually when you got the sun out, they want the flash. But after that sun popped out, he took me to school on fishing the jig, but he was whistling that jig all day long. I could hear his line whistling. So that's kind of what I fished January, February. And this is what I was throwing when Randall and I were fishing last weekend. Didn't get a lot of fish on it, but did get a bite on it. About the only thing I could conjure a bite up on. So usually I throw these like in time of the year when they're eating the crawfish. Yeah, when they're eating crawfish, I'll usually throw this crawfish color, you know. If you ever fish a night tournament on Lake Concordia, you must have about a half a dozen of these in the boat. And you're going to catch probably 25 or 30 fish off of this bait. And they're all going to be 18 3/4 inches long. You'll not catch one over 19 inches, but you will catch a lot of good fish, and they fight very well. And
What about trailer hooks, David? You use those?
I do throw a trailer hook if I find I'm getting, a lot of times when you're fishing that spinnerbait, they'll come up from under it and they'll just bump you. You'll feel something, but you never get a hook set on it. I'll stop and put a trailer hook on it. If I'm throwing that Terminator, I don't usually have a trailer hook on it because the wire's so soft on it. If you bump any little thing, that wire's gonna move over and trailer hook's the next thing that's gonna grab whatever you just bump. So if you're fishing cover, you're usually gonna hang up that trailer hook. If you're fishing something heavier duty like that red one, I'll usually use a trailer hook on it. And I found those trailer hooks you can buy, I think the green one I didn't, but they have the little rubber, like surgical tube, and, because they'll stay in place straight behind that other hook. Those seem to work the best. So, one other thing, covered the skirts, covered the heads, is the rod I usually use. You know, everybody has their favorite rods. I usually go, I've tried 25 or 30 different rods, but I go with this medium action castaway rod, and I usually throw a Corrado and a 17-pound test. I've tried 20, 25, 10, 14. I keep going back to the 17. It seems to be right in the ballpark, and that's kind of that Indiana.
Use monofilament or braid?
Just mono. I use like a heavy duty power string or something like that. You know, I don't know what you call it, but I use a heavy duty mono. And then usually I'll throw like I said, the Terminator with the longer willow blade. I was throwing this the other day and just to get a little more vibration because it's kind of like slow bite, so I thought I'd try it. I do recommend if you fish a lot of spinnerbaits and or crankbaits, get you one of these.
Got a taller blanket?
Yeah, because the Terminators run with about $7 or $8 a piece, and crankbaits, and I know Tim's fish with me a few times. But when every time I use that pole, I go $5, $5, $5. It pays for itself. It's about $30. I've probably saved about $500 or $600 worth of spinnerbaits with that pole right there. So that's a very good investment. And the only other thing, I'm working on my prototype of the next spinnerbait. It's called the X-Terminator. Works in muddy water, cloudy day.
I want a gross of them.
That's called a DuPont spinner.
That's pretty much it. I think everybody pretty well fishes.
Why do you use the willow with Colorado?
Willow with the little Colorado on top? I found it just kind of gives it a little more vibration.
I've been using double Colorado or double willows.
Yeah, the double willows I found work best when you're really trying to burn it because you don't have that much lag on the reel. I guess over the years, my preference, I'll just go to the willow with the little Colorado blade on it and see, especially if y'all have never fished a Terminator, when you're feeling that the end of that rod is shaking the whole time you're reeling that thing, it's got a lot of vibration. So that's just what I've been going
Now,
to.
when you fishing the long skirts, you don't get shark bites?
Not usually. Sometimes I do, and if I'm starting to get the short bites, I'm feeling the bump and I'm setting the hook and nothing's there, after about twice, I'll stop and put on a trailer hook. I will use a trailer hook, but I'll try to stay away from them if I can, because I found I spend more time reaching for this pole.
Because I found, well, with me, my bait is the willow and the Colorado. Metallic, blue and black, the same setup you have here.
Yeah.
I've caught more 5-pound bass on that bait than anything else in my box.
That's a good
And I
bait.
find trimming the skirt back closer to the hook works on the shark bites.
Yeah, that'll help too. I mean, usually with something like that, if it's got the real stiff wire on it, I'll just stick a trailer hook on it. Sometimes I'll put my trailer on the trailer hook to kind of, keep that trailer hook up so it won't hang as much. I don't know if it makes that much difference on how it pulls through the water, but,
Have you thrown them the type that have a flexible wire on the hook itself behind the head where the hook up better with it?
talking about where the hook,
Yeah,
the
swivels.
hook moves a little bit. Yeah, I've seen those. I've always stuck with the solid hook on the head.
Yeah.
And in fact, the terminators, after you catch a few fish on them, they get a little, probably terminators are bad about, worse than any other bait of the spinner baits about the head eventually breaking off on them because they just get soft. I think it's just that lead and titanium, I guess they just don't mix very well.
I don't like spinner baits with that rubber in it. That's the only-
Yeah.
I don't care for that Terminator.
One other thing I've learned on these spinner baits, especially if you're throwing with the bigger blades, how many of y'all throw like this? Or I guess like this? I've got away from that, and I'm probably gonna break my rod doing this, but if, you ever seen a pro golfer? Can I borrow one of your rods? You ever seen a pro golfer, how he swings a golf club? He doesn't use his shoulders as much as he does the whip and the wrist at the end. I learned, take that thing sidearm, or actually I usually do it backhand. Try not to do it, but I'm left-handed, so, but whip that thing sideways like that, and you can even do a little loop underneath it to get it under the limbs, and it keeps the bait low, flat to the water, and you don't have the, especially if you're fishing into the wind with a spinner bait, which you want to try to do. Those blades will catch the wind if you're throwing it, and you don't have, the bird nest come out. So over the years, I just learned to kind of do it just like the golf club, like that, and it'll pitch it out there pretty fast. And at the end of the day, your arm's not near as tired, just from throwing it all day. That's all I have. Unless y'all have some questions.
Any questions?
Good job.
Usually like the chartreuse and white, or the black and blue, or the red and silicone.
Very good.
Oh, thank you.
I gotta take the red back home.